Thank you, Abba Yah, for thank you, Abba Yah, for having us gather here today, Father. Once again, Father, to definitely meditate upon your word, Father. Thank you so much for keeping our families during this time, keeping all of the pestilence outside, Father, keeping us filled with your spirit, filled with your ruach. Also, Father, keeping us safe and sound from all sicknesses, Father. I also pray for our children, Father, that they may be definitely straight head forward towards you, Father. As we go and teach them, Father, the next couple of years, Father, let everything that we teach our children definitely stick, Father. Let it definitely nourish them, Father. Let it be something that stays upon their mind and they meditate upon your words day and night, Abba Yah. I pray for our children, Father, because of course, Father, that is the main focus of you, Father. To have someone that carry this message, Father, from the beginning to the end, Father, to have that pureness, Father, the pureness of heart, to understand your word from a child on up is a blessing, Father. Lead and guide us, Father, to teach our children, Father. Also lead and guide us, Father, to come humbly as children to you, Father, so we may learn what we need to learn, Father. Also, Father, let us learn how to love each other, Father, how to love each other in spite of our ways, in spite of different things that we may see that bothers us, Father. Let us look past it, Father, and let us be more like Yahushua. Let us have the understanding, the discernment during these end days, Father, not to be fooled or not to even fall for Hasatan tricks, Father. Let us also, Father, say no to wickedness, Father. Let us abhor all evil, Father, during this hour, Father. Let us also, Father, stay upon you, Father, and stay upon the righteous path. I also pray, Father, for the people that we do talk to, Father, that is not into the word, Father, that is not covered. I also pray for them, Father, that as these plagues and as these things get rougher in the earth, Father, that it is a way that they will come running to us, Father, because hopefully when they see the trumpet being blown, that they would understand what time they're in. And hopefully they will run, Father, to you, Father. And hopefully we'll be there, Father, to help water the seed. I also pray, Father, for our families that just celebrate this wicked holiday. I pray that, Father, that some of them, Father, not all of them are going to go, but I do pray that some of them actually come around, Father, after they see this year, Father, that nothing will go good, Father. Nothing will go back until they humble themselves and come to you, Father. And through you, Father, that's the only way we shall be saved. I pray that as we read your Torah tonight and we leave here, Father, that these seeds that we take, Father, is planted everywhere, Father, that we can get them in the ground. And I pray that everything that we do become fruitful. In Yahushua HaMashiach name I pray. Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. You just said something interesting about the trumpets. You prayed that we would hear them. I remember before I got off Facebook, I had there's a couple people I grew up with, maybe a couple handfuls of people up here where I grew up that have, or men that I've grown up with, and some women, but mostly men who have gone into like comedics and Egyptology is what a lot of people call it. And before I got off Facebook maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, and they would all, when things would be happening, I remember like around the time of Donald Trump being elected, and um, just when things would be happening, different storms and earthquakes and things, of that nature, they would always joke about, they would be joking with the Christians, like, did y'all hear the trumpet yet? Was it a trumpet for this? And was it a trumpet for that? And, they were kind of making mockery of that. Um, and it just, when you said that, it made me think about them. It makes me wonder today, like with COVID and worldwide lockdowns and all of that, are they still somewhere joking about trumpets? You kind of just made me think about that. Somebody turn. Shalom, DJ. Okay. My shot on Facebook with them still. They still joking, huh? Dang. That sucks. Can everybody see my screen before we start? Shalom.
Shalom, Maki. How everybody doing?
Doing well. How about yourself? I know you out in Virginia where it was snowing, right?
Yeah. It's cold out here. Everything good though. Hold on one second. My bad, got the kids, man.
Oh, good, man. Little Israel, little Yasharal, man, they the future.
Yeah, you ain't never lied. Drilling that into 'em.
Hallelujah. So last week we were going over this tea. Y'all excuse me, I was just finishing my tea. I have cayenne pepper in it, and when it gets to the bottom, that's where all of the spices is at. And it's just hit me in my nose. But last week, as we were going, Enoch is journeying the earth, and he's with some angels, and they're showing him the farthest reaches of the earth, parts that possibly, and it's probably more believably, that no man has never seen. And we something that stood out last week was he was journeying west. And as he journeyed west, it got more and more desolate, darkness, chaos. The place, you remember he went inside the one mountain. It had the 4 places where people who die go to rest, 3 places of darkness, 1 place of light. I believe that place of light to be what the one rich man in the New Testament, as they call it, was talking about. He's seen Lazarus in Abraham's bosom. Because in the place of light, it stated that that's where the people who lived a righteous life or a functional life for Yah, they wanted to rest and wait in a place of light, while everybody else, sinners, so to speak, will wait in darkness. And then in 27, he started to go east. 26, actually, I believe. And as he started to go east last week, we saw what we believe to be Jerusalem. And now he's talking about a lot more places of water and trees, more paradise type, pleasant type places. And we're going to continue to see that theme as he travels east. Scripturally, forgive me. Scripturally, to go east, in scripture. This is from the Tower of Babel. They were all at the Mount Ararat when Noah was at, and then they started to journey from the east. It says that they found a plain in Shinar, which Shinar, present day Iraq, would be east of where Ararat in Turkey. If those geographic locations are the correct ones, I believe they are, but it's debatable, respectfully. But it says when they journeyed from the east, and we see that, to face the east in scripture means something. Kadim, the front, right? Or time, it could mean, often used before anciently, ancient time or the ancient path. So with Yah, as we travel this ancient path with Yah, an ancient Israelite would look at that as traveling east. And I say that because as we see with Enoch, as he's traveling east, he's coming into these more pleasant places. And when it's used here in the Tower of Babel, it says they journeyed from the east. It's trying to say that, they were, I don't got to go through all that, but what it was saying is, which is true, as they were leaving from where Noah was at, and he was teaching the word of Yah. And this was all nations at this time, or people representing all of the different genealogies. So you had seeds of Shem, seeds of Ham, and seeds of Japheth at the Tower of Babel, right? Everybody was under one language of one speech because it was the language that Noah and his children taught them after the flood, which I believe would have been Hebrew, right? But what he's using that here to say there is, as they journeyed from the east, he's really saying is as they decided to leave the ancient path, as they decided to leave off from the ancient ways of Yah, because as we see, they're going to go build this tower and get to saying that they were going to kill the Most High and do all this other stuff. So I just felt like that definition was a good breakdown as we go, as we see now the difference between when Enoch was traveling west, he saw desolation and Sheol, at least we believe, and it was pillars of fire and chaos and pain, and he was afraid. And now as he's traveling east towards the ancient path, on the ancient ways of Yah, right? Because that's what the east is considered. Even if I'm not mistaken, even in the first temple that Solomon built, maybe the second too, I think the main door was like the east, or that was the door nobody could come in from the east entrance because that was like the door of Yah or something like that. But it was the eastern door of the temple was a big deal as well. So as we start in chapter 28, journey to the east, as he's going further east, we're going to see that same theme, at least to start. I didn't read all of this, but chapter 28, it says, and from there, I went in the direction of the east, of the ancient path. That just, every time I hear the east now in scripture, it makes me think of us talking of going in the direction of the ancient path, which is the path of Yah, right? Into the center of a mountain of the desert. And I saw a wilderness. And I saw a wilderness, and it was solitary, full of trees and seeds. And there was a stream on top of it, and it gushed forth from above it. It appeared like a waterfall, which cascaded greatly, as if toward the direction of the west. Of the northeast, water and dew ascended from it all over. So this first place he goes to, he says he's in the center of a mountain of the desert, and he saw a wilderness full of trees and seeds with waterfalls. You know, another kind of almost sound like he's talking about Hawaii or something. That's kind of how Hawaii is, you know, volcanoes and waterfalls everywhere, but it's considered to be a beautiful place. It's like he's describing an oasis / paradise type of setup in the middle of the desert. He said, right? 29. Then I went into another place in the desert, and I approached the easterly direction of this mountain. So he's going to the far east side of this mountain. And there I saw the tree of judgment, which has the smell of rubbish. Its tree looked like that of frankincense and myrrh. Okay. So once he gets over there, he sees the tree of judgment. I'm sure there's a way to highlight this. I don't think it is. No. Anyway. But as he goes to the further east side of this mountain, where it's like an oasis in the middle, he sees the tree of judgment. It smelled like rubbish, but it looked like frankincense and myrrh. Okay. Chapter 30. These kind of short, 30 and 31. And beyond it, beyond those above the easterly mountains, so even further east from the easterly mountains, it is not far. Or the tree was beyond those mountains a little bit, not that far. And I saw a place which is a valley of water that is endless. And I saw a beautiful tree which resembles a tree whose fragrance is like that of mastic. And in the direction of the sides of those valleys, I saw a fragrant cinnamon tree. And over these, I proceeded in the easterly direction. So he sees the tree of judgment, which smelled like rubbish, but looked like frankincense and myrrh. He's continuing to move east. And he's starting to see more and more beautiful trees with great fragrances. Right? And then chapter 31, and I saw other mountains with trees in them. There flowed from them, the trees, something like nectar called Sarara and Galbanum. And over these mountains, I saw yet another mountain, and in it there were alloy trees, and the whole forest was full of trees, like sturdy almond trees. And when one picks the fruit, it gives the most pleasant odor. So once again, as he was traveling west, we were seeing a lot of desolation, a lot of anguish and pain, things that he was afraid of. And as he travels east, it's getting more and more pleasant, I should say. Trees and mountains, and in the middle of mountains, streams, he's in the desert. And it just gives me the idea of how they talk about like oases and things like that. But Any questions or comments from chapters 28 through 31? I don't know much about these trees either, but I understand that trees can represent nations, trees can represent mighty men, trees can represent angelic beings as well, same as mountains. Just different things to keep in mind as we read through this, if anybody sees anything. But moving on, and I'm sure it's a good reference to these trees, to something somewhere. We'll see as we go through. Chapter 32. And after experiencing this fragrant odor, this beautiful odor, he said, a pleasant odor, while looking toward the northeast over the mountains, I saw 7 mountains full of excellent nard, fragrant trees, cinnamon trees, and pepper. From there, I went over the summits of the mountains, far towards the east of the earth. I then passed over the Etherian, I believe, sea, and went far from it, and passed over the head of angel, Zatuel, and I came to the garden of righteousness, and I saw beyond those trees many other large ones growing there. Their fragrance sweet, large ones with much elegance and glorious, and the tree of wisdom, of which one eats and knows great wisdom, was among them. It looked like the colors of the carob tree, its fruit like very beautiful grape clusters, and the fragrance of the tree travels and reaches afar. And I said, this tree is beautiful, and its appearance beautiful and pleasant. Then the Kodesh Melachim, Raphael, who was with me, and he just said multiple angels. This is every time it's like Uriel and Raguel, I believe is one. Like, it's been multiple angels with him as he's been doing this traveling. As we went through either last week or the week before, these angels' names are all different, and they speak to their function possibly in the Shemaim. And it says, who was with me responded to me and said, this very thing is the tree of wisdom, from which your old father and aged mother, they who are your precursors, ate and came to know wisdom. And consequently, their eyes were open, and they realized that they were naked. And so they were expelled from the garden. So he sees the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I'm assuming this is. Any questions? Chapter 32. Go ahead, Lord.
Yeah. I was when it spoke about the spikenard, the saffron, the pomegranates, like the pleasant fruits, the cinnamon, the aloes, the myrrh, the fragrances. They mentioned that well, I don't know where Manah at, dang it, but I should hit it real quick. Only because it talks about that in Psalms when he speaks about the garden.
Mm-hmm.
He tells you about a garden in the Songs of Solomon. Actually, he tells about it's in a garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse. It's Songs 4, Songs of Songs 4 verse 12. A garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Thy plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, campfire, spikenard, saffron, calamus, cinnamon, with all trees of fragrances, myrrh and aloes, with all the chief spices, a fountain of gardens, a well living waters, and streams from Lebanon. Awake north wind, and come, thou south, blow upon my garden, that the spices thereof may flow out. Let my beloved come into his garden and eat his pleasant fruits. And it's funny because the garden that he speak of, the garden that we see here, is somewhat I always believed to be connected. When I first read this, I thought about when Yahushua, he tells the parable about him standing over the garden. The owner of the garden comes and says, well, the fruit has not borne enough fruit. So when he's saying, let's grab it up, or let's toss it, he's saying, wait, because they will bear fruit. We are the garden. So when I thought about what Enoch was saying as far as the trees, and when I did a study on the trees, when you study people and trees, when I really got to that, I think of us as being the garden. We're being pruned. We're being nourished. We have everything in the garden. We have sunlight. We have water. We have everything we need when we're in that. When we're in the bed. When we're in the house, we're constantly being nourished and grown up to be the trees and no longer the branches. We're kind of forming and bearing so much fruit by spreading the Father. But that's exactly what I saw there. That's all. I'm gonna keep it short because there's a lot with the trees. I'm not gonna go into it. All right.
Take your time. You know, um, does it say that in scripture? Does it say that in scripture?
Let's see, that remind me of that verse that Shelley has shared with me about when he said when he oh gosh, I still gotta get that verse from Shelley. But it was speaking of when he went to heal the man's eyes. And I guess he gave him too much juice. And what he saw was men walking as trees, trees walking as men. The Father basically signifying in a spiritual manner, you are the trees. The way that you are planted. That's why he says you're planted by water. And when you hear that in Psalms, we're planted. When he speaks about, oh, no one can come and uproot you because you're planted. Um, being planted into the soil, being planted, it has something to do with the being planted and stamped to the foundation.
Mm.
And in the Hebrew sense, it's like basically being the nail that holds the tent up. The tent ain't going nowhere because you're nailed down, you're fastened.
True. And as you know what, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about these trees. You know, that some of the trees, and I don't believe it was all of them, because you did have y'all said that he had put some other trees in the garden. He planted trees, but it's also it's also some of the trees were the angels, you know. Um, so as we read this, you know, that's why I said, and I saw beautiful trees, which resembles a tree whose fragrance is light of mastic in the direction of the sides of those valleys. I saw a fragrant cinnamon tree, and over these alloy trees, and the whole forest was full of trees like sturdy almond trees. When one picks the fruit, it gives the most pleasant odor. That reminds me of it could possibly be the Malachim of Yah, and pick the fruit, meaning when they um when Adam and Eve would fellowship, those angels would teach them the things that Abba Yah deemed um acceptable, and it would be a pleasant odor. It would be just like the incense and outside of the Holy of Holies, bringing that pleasant odor into the into the Ark of the Covenant and around it, you know, which is that pleasant odor, which is representation of the prayers of the righteous. That's kind of like um, the sense of what I get here. Um, in Genesis, it's in like the first and second book of Adam and Eve too. When I'm getting to, but in Genesis 3:24, when they had to leave the garden, he said, so he drove out the man and he placed at the east of the garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which tore every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So he placed them at the east of the garden, and I believe all over the garden to keep them. That's not even exactly what I'm looking for, but in the first and second book of Adam and Eve, when they're kicked from the garden, right? Um, Abiyah, where he puts them at when they leave the garden, one of the things that he tells them is, I'm putting you on this side so when the wind blows, you don't always smell the fragrances of the trees in the garden, and basically mourn and lament that you ain't there no more. You know, I'm not trying to tease you with the fragrances of the trees of the garden. So that also makes me think of these scripts right here. Any of y'all want to read these scriptures that's in the chat before we move on? Any other questions or comments? As far as it saying he passed over the head of the angel Zutiel, Zatuel, I don't really know what that means. I then passed over a certain sea and went far from it and passed over the head of the angel Zatiel. And in the just in the notes, it says that Zatiel is, uh, it omits the angel. So in the notes, that angel, that word may have been added angel. It might have just said passed over the head of Zatiel. So I don't even know if that's an angel or not. It says that word is omitted in other translations of this. So, but yeah, the garden. He says the tree of wisdom was still in there at this time when Enoch saw it as well. Um, I'm not sure why that would be, because we know eventually that, I believe also in the first and second book of Adam and Eve, it said that when they left that they saw the tree had withered up or something along that line. So it almost shows that like Abiyah is showing him what the garden once was before sin got into the world, that even this tree, I was allowing it to be in the garden. And then once it broke protocol, it also had to go. But, that's just one of those things here. Any other questions or comments about this part or any of the parts so far? Chapters 28 through 32. This is very interesting here. The very thing is the tree of wisdom, which your father ate and came to know wisdom, right? And that's also different because it doesn't tell us that. A lot of people believe, there's a lot of different beliefs with the tree. Some people believe that the tree was Hasatan, and um, he had like some sort of sexual relations with Eve. But it says here that when they ate, they became to know wisdom. And when you bring the word fruit up in this story, good for food and pleasant to the eyes. No. When you bring the word fruit, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree, the word for fruit here is the root of it is pei resh, right? We know the pei is an open mouth, the resh is the head of a man, and it said combine these mean to open the head. So in the open the head means you're teaching somebody something, you're opening up their mind, really, right? So when you break that down in Hebrew, the word fruit and the actual tree in the garden, it kind of leads to that same thing. But like I say, man, you got Hebrews, man, all over the place with these stories, man. I don't know if there is a wrong in this sense, but I'm not here to say what's right. But moving on, chapter 33. I wonder, Kifa, if you can you bring up that Zoltiel? It might be Zoltiel as well. Can you figure out what that name means for me in Hebrew? I know you be bringing them up. But Lauren or Shireen, I'm sorry, do either one of you want to read these scriptures you put in the chat to add to the conversation?
Oh, shoot. Oh, let's go. No, I'm sorry.
Shalom. No, hey, Lauren. No, my script was just to add to what Akoti Lauren was talking about, the trees. And Psalms 1 is what popped into my head when she was talking. So I just shared it.
Okay.
For that reason.
Hallelujah. Shalom, too. Psalms 1:3, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. And that does also speak towards what's being said here, because before it talked about these trees, it said that it's all these streams, and they're in the desert. So, the way we know the desert today, there is no water in the desert. People die of thirst in the desert if you get lost in the desert, But these trees that are in this mountain range in the desert, it also spoke of waterfalls and plenty water around. So that's a good script that speaks towards that. And it's talking about, it says, but chapter 1, verse 2, but his delight is in the law of Yah, and in his law doeth he meditate day and night. It's talking about blessed is the man, and it's talking about what's the blessing of man. And he's saying that if we meditate on the law, if we write these things on our heart and allow Abiyah to guide us through his word, we'll be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, which also speaks to these trees not just being physical bark trees, but mighty men or people of high stature, or a tree, it talks about its trunk as being sturdy, and that's what they liken to a mighty man or an angelic being, a melachim, and things like that. So this is showing that maybe when you get a spiritual body, it's like a tree, you become sturdy, something powerful, planted by rivers of water. And we know that if trees or any plants are planted by rivers of water, you typically don't even have to water them as much, because the water from the river and the river's bed will water things on its own. The roots will be connected into those things. So it's just a lot of ways to look at it. But hallelujah. What about you, Lauren? You had something?
No, yep. All right. I just wanted to point out the fact that that the trees, the planting of trees and all the manner of fruits, like that's something that always symbolizes, I guess, us. But some verses kind of really like hit home to it, like in Genesis 2:8, when Yahuwah planted a garden in the eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. He put him in a garden. That's the first place he put us at. And that understanding alone, like, okay, so he put Adam and Eve in a garden. That's the first place that we even was at till we got out of it. And even when we are cursed and he tell us to leave, and he said, well, you're cursed to till the ground for your food. It's almost like he made sure he understood, like, no, you're going to have to till the ground, lay the seeds, bring forth the plants, watch after them, trim them, prune them, look at them grow, get fruit from them, and redo the process. By teaching us that alone is actually showing us how to reap what we sow. And it's actually showing in a different way. To me, is in a way different way far as spiritual. Because when you sow one seed, you reap 1,000. So if you sow one good seed, you're always going to get like 1,000 back. And I think about that too when the Father says, well, when we're supposed to be sowing seeds, if that one person get it, they go carry it. You never know how big that vine will get. And I think about when they were leaving, and I think it's in Leviticus 19, verse 23, when he said, and when ye shall come into the land, and shall have planted all manner of trees for food, then ye shall count the fruit thereof as uncircumcised. 3 years shall it be as uncircumcised unto you. It shall not be eaten. He taught us so many things about the land, how to care for our fruits. He gave us basically a roadmap where we need to do certain things. And we'll back it up to verse 22. And the priest shall make atonement for him when the ram of the trespass offering before Yahuwah, for his sin which he have done, and the sin which he have done all be forgiven him. And when he shall come into the land, and shall have planted all manner of trees of food, he's telling us what to do with the food, how to hold them, what to do with them. Don't eat them for a certain while. Man, it has something to do with land Sabbath. And when I got into the book of Jubilees and I looked at the land Shabbats, I looked at things that the Father really put forward to tell us how to take care of the earth, how to take care of the plants. And it's amazing in a way because he's telling you how to take care of us. We are his vineyard. We are his plants. We are his trees. And when we are the leaves, we fall off during each season. But the branches, they stay around through every season because they're strong. And eventually, them branches will definitely be strong enough to be within the tree. And I think that's where we see the two trees. We see them in Revelations. Then we see Hamashiach saying, I'm the true vine. Anything that's not in me shall be uprooted and tossed into the fire. That's John 15. When you see Jeremiah 2, verse 21, yet I have planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? And that's in Jeremiah 2:21. So it's like you have to be crafted into the actual plant that is rooted correctly. Because if you're crafted into anything else, you're killing yourself. It's in Jeremiah 2, verse 21. Yet I have planted thee a noble vine, holy holly, a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? The strange vine is not the true vine, which is mentioned in John 15. That's why it has to get cut down. That matches with the Baruch 36. Baruch 36 gives you a vision about all these trees. And then there's one vine, and the Father's killing everything that's around it. And I mean, that's what I see within the scriptures when he says the cedar tree, this tree, that tree. All these trees are, some of them are not the Father's. Some of them are trees that just overgrown over time, and they're basically rooted in wickedness. So the Father comes to uproot them. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All these trees are not the Father's. This is true. Because we see in the garden, the tree of wisdom or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was in the garden. And, you know, to be of the Father, that means we have his function, we have his characteristics, and that tree did not. So hallelujah, good points. Any other questions or comments before we move on? I think this is cool too. It's showing that the garden was surrounded by these mountains. One of these mountains possibly is the mountain that Adam and Chawah went and lived on after they were kicked out of the garden. It's just interesting. It's a lot here. I really feel like we're just scratching the surface of these few chapters, but hallelujah that Abiyah is allowing us to do that. Chapter 33. And from there I went to the extreme ends of the earth, and I saw their huge beasts. So big animals, each different from the other, and different birds, also different from one another, in appearance, beauty, and voice. And to the east of those beasts, I saw the ultimate ends of the earth, which rests on the heavens. So he's seen the pillars, I'm assuming, and we discussed how those pillars are really, or I shouldn't say really, I shouldn't speak in absolutes. Possibly those pillars are, I do believe that they are really big angels. The earth isn't like just sitting on a stationary object. Abiyah has even commissioned some really big angels he created, and they're holding up the pillars of, they're the actual pillars of the earth. They're holding it up. And he said he saw this, and the gates of heaven were open. And I saw how the stars of heaven come out. Stars could possibly be the Melachim. I would say not like a star the way we see a star today, but you know, how do we see stars today based off the astronomy and sciences of the world? What exactly are they showing us? And the gates of heaven were open, and I saw how the stars of the Shemaim came out. And I counted the gates out of which they exit and wrote down all their exits for each one. So now he's writing down these paths, and maybe these are what we would call stars. Now that he's writing these paths, because I believe he's about to go into talking about like the luminaries. But Enoch said that the stars come out of gates, and I counted the gates out of which they exit and wrote down all their exits for each one. And also, just before we move on in chapter 33, he says that to the east of Eden, which I think Abiyah put Adam and Eve to the east of Eden. It was the east or the south. I'm not 100% sure. Might even have been the west. I'm not even 100% sure. Forgive me that. I have to look that up in a second. But they were huge beasts, right? And, you know, I said this here before. It's my belief that pre-flood things were bigger in general. So for Enoch, who's living pre-flood, to say that there were huge beasts, he's talking about something much bigger than we've probably ever seen on the animal side. Because I believe that the animals that he dealt with on a daily, the lions, the tigers, the bears, the elephants, the birds, all of that pre-flood were bigger anyway. So I believe Enoch and men were bigger. So with that belief, and that's my opinion, but with that belief, these must have been some really big beasts to stick out to him, right? And he says that this is right before he got to the very ends of the earth. I saw the ultimate ends of the earth. He saw the pillars, he saw the gates. And in those gates, he said, according to their numbers, their names, their ranks, their seats, their periods, their months, which kind of speaks to these stars being Melachim as well. And maybe what we, you know, it's possible. I don't know how I feel about this, man, but it's possible. I think this every time I go out. Not tonight because it's cloudy or snowing, but a lot of times when I go out at night and I look up at the stars, it's very possible that some, if not all, maybe just a handful of what we see shining in the sky as a star is a being, an angel. Because he said he's writing their names, their ranks, their seats, their periods, their months, and they would also have a function to move a certain way in the Shemaim. Because remember, Abiyah says that is this Psalm 19? Yeah. To the chief musician, the Psalm of Dawid, Abiyah says in Psalm 19, verse 1, the heavens, plural, because there's levels to heaven, right? The heavens Shemaim, right? Lofty, the sky. But there's levels to heaven, celestial bodies, all of that. The heavens declare the glory of Elohim. And the firmament, which is the barrier between our plane and heaven. And I don't know how far the firmament is. Far. I don't believe it's right outside what we would call the atmosphere. That's why they're able to have the ISS and the satellites and whatnot and the telescopes that they put up there. But and we're going to go through this in Enoch. The moon is in like the second level of heaven, and it's going to say the sun is in the fourth, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't believe they've been to those places, but there is a space between the firmament and the earth for that man has tried to operate in, I should say. So he was kicked out towards the east. That's believable. It's in another book, you know me. It's another extra book, or in the life of Adam and Eve, I believe it says. But and like I say, I'll find that and bring that up because I just think it's not really important, but it just adds to this story as he's detailing these different sides of what's going on around Eden. Is all. I wasn't, you know, it's not really to prove a point, but you are right. It would lend that he probably sent them to the east if the cherubim or the cherubim was put that way. To oversee that. But it says, in the firmament showeth his handiwork, right? Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. So whether these stars are balls of gas and water, as science says, or if they're beings, right? They have a function in the Shemaim. Night after night showeth knowledge. Abiyah is telling a story in the stars, right? The firmament showeth his handiwork, right? So when as Enoch is detailing this, and I never completely understood this. Maybe as we go through this together, we can come up with some revelations. I must admit, I never completely understood this, but maybe we can come up with some revelations of that knowledge, that handiwork of Yah and Yah. Because remember, everything in creation, Yah is trying to make a point and show us something. Toda Rabada Abiyah for waking us up and allowing us to even just see that point, because a lot of people can't even see that, you know. We ask him to guide us as we go forward and to help us see what it is that he wants us to see. So Enoch wrote the exits in and out, their ranks, their seats, their periods, their months, which different stars you see different, at least up north where I am. I don't know where everybody is in the world, but up north where I am, like right now in the southern sky where I'm at, I can see Orion, which is the man, the 3 stars on his belt, and he looks like a man in the sky. But when I look for him in the summer, because the sun is more in the northern part, right? Because I watch the way the sun goes too. I can't see him in the summer. And I've looked for him the last 2 years. And this year I noticed it, like, okay, so when I start to see Orion, I know it's starting to get cold, you know? But Abiyah has a purpose, whether they be beings or balls of gas and fire and all that science is, they are showing us something, right? In their months, and it's different. This knowledge, what he's showing us is at different times. The pattern of the moon, the sun is pretty the same. It just changes whether it's in the northern hemisphere, as they say, or the southern, for lack of a better word. But the moon has a weird If any of you have ever watched like the way the moon is different. It doesn't just move across the sky like the sun, like it changes. It changes at times to me. And the stars are actually, as I watch them in the winter, I can understand the stars better, ironically, than the summer, but they kind of move the same way, but it's not east to west, like it's not east to west. Um, like the sun. Like when I see Orion in the southern, like right now it's in the southern hemisphere. But if I'm out at like 5, 6 in the morning, right before the sun comes up, it'll be then made its way up to like a northwest position instead of just going east to west in the southern sky. If that make any sense. But it said as their months as Uriel, the holy angel who was with me, another one, a different angel. Enoch is with a platoon of angels. Which is funny. Well, I shouldn't say funny, but that shows you how scary the lake of fire had to really be, because Enoch is with a bunch of different angels and it scared him. And he's with I'll be honest, sent them with a platoon of angels, basically letting them know you good. And he still was a little worried when he saw that. Not a little, it said he was a lot worried when he saw that. The holy angel who was with me showed me. He showed me all things and wrote them down for me. Also, in addition, he wrote down their names, their laws, and their companies. Which speaks to them being powerful Melachim, because the Melachim, as we read in the beginning of this, right? You have Melachim over hundreds, over 50s, over 10s. They have ranks like an army, like a general. That's why it's Yahuwah of hosts, Yahuwah Sabaoth, Yahuwah of the army or the hosts of heaven, right? That's why it's like that. So, and Uriel helped Enoch or wrote this for Enoch. That might be why I don't understand it. It's written in angel. Hallelujah. But Uriel wrote this down for him in their company. So it speaks to this being Melachim as well. So, that's just something to think about as you all go outside, no matter, depending on where you are. If you could look up tonight and you're outside, as you look up at the stars, you may be looking at Melachim, angelic beings. So when we see clusters of stars like Orion or what they call a Big Dipper, that might just be the company of a certain angel that's over that division, or, it's just a thought. It's just something to think about as you look up into the sky. Any questions or comments on 33 before we move on? Okay, 34. I'm gonna read 34 and 35. Well, no, we're gonna take it section by section. We'll take it section by section. 34. From there, I went in the direction of the north. So he'd been traveling east. He'd made it to the ends of the earth where it connects with the Shemaim, as he say. He saw the pillar, which possibly is an angel on the east side of this plane holding up the earth. And now he travels north from the east. From there, I went in the direction of the north to the extreme ends of the earth. So northeast, he's saying, is the extreme ends of the earth. And there at the extreme end of the whole world, I saw a great and glorious seat. There, I saw 3 open gates of Shemaim. So northeast, write that down. First Enoch, chapter 34. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was gonna wait. I was getting it together. I just wanted to have my hand up and be ready.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but I was thinking, because I know you already in the book of Ezekiel, right?
I'm everywhere, to be honest. I don't really.
Man, look, man, we see them 3 gates in Revelations 21, verse 13. We also see them 3 gates, I think, in Ezekiel 48. But I'll start off with the Revelations 21, verse 13. And let me pull it all the way up so I can have it. And it says in verse 11, I like to back it up so we won't cherry pick the Bible. Let's go to verse 11. Having the glory of Elohim, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates. And at the gates was 12 angels, and the names was written there on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east was 3 gates. On the north was 3 gates. On the south was 3 gates. and on the west was 3 gates. And the wall of this city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of Hamashiach the Lamb. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city and the gates thereof and the wall thereof. I wanted to point that out because I always thought of that being somewhat what he was saying as well. And then I thought about Ezekiel too, because Ezekiel 48, he talks about 3 gates as well. I think it's Ezekiel 48, the portion of other tribes. I think it's verse 23. Ezekiel 48, verse 23. It talks about the portion of the tribes. So it says, as for the rest of the tribes from the east side and to the west side was Benjamin shall have apportionment. And then it says, from the border of Benjamin, from the east side and to the west side, Simeon shall have a portion. It goes all the way down, goes to all of our portions, all the way to verse 30. When we go to verse 30, it says, and these are the goings out of the city on the north side, 4,500 measures. And the gates of the city shall be after the names of the tribes of Israel. 3 gates northward, 1 gate will be of Reuben, 1 gate will be Judah, and 1 gate will be Levi. And I always wondered how, look, Levi, Judah, and Reuben shared a gate. And I always thought about that prophecy when he said, Reuben, you was unstable as water. And I was sitting there like, wow, he's the firstborn. Reuben is the firstborn of the children of Israel. Mm-hmm. And then it says 1 gate of Judah and 1 gate of Levi. They share a gate. In verse 32, it says, and at the east side is 4,503 gates, and 1 gate of Joseph, 1 gate of Benjamin, 1 gate of Dan. And then you see Simeon, Issachar, and Zebulun is in the south side, 3 gates. And then in the west side, 3 gates. That's how you know it's our people: west, east, north, south. 1 gate of Gad, 1 gate of Asher, and 1 gate of Naphtali. It was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day shall be Yahuwah is there. And I think about the end when the Father sets up the city, and he sets up the place where we be at. As far as when I read Ezekiel 48. But I thought about that when Enoch is speaking of the gates and how 3 gates are setting up. And I think about our grandfather Abraham. Remember, we are the seeds of Abraham. We are the seed by what we do. And it's funny because he set up 4 gates. And he let everyone in to scoop up and to take things that they needed when they come by and talk to them and give them the word and show them love. And it's amazing because when we see that, we see a setup again of east, west, north, south, just like Abraham had it set up. But this time it's 3 gates on each side, and they're openings for the children to come in. That's it.
Hallelujah. And you know what? I didn't think of that. But as we go through this, I'm gonna keep that in mind, that how these gates are set up in the Revelation as well. I've never thought about it, but if I had to guess, and we'll probably see as we go forward, this is probably set up in that manner. The gates of the Shemaim probably do resemble the gates of Yah City, because in a sense, I'm sure y'all ever heard the term where somebody talks about having heaven on earth. In the end, the New Jerusalem is going to be a piece of heaven on earth, or I know it's going to say it's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. So it's beyond me to fathom exactly what that means, but something in that ballpark, right? So he said, at the extreme end of the whole world, he saw a great and glorious sea. That's one. And he saw there 3 open gates of the Shemaim, when it blows cold, hail, frost, and snow, dew, and rain. Through each one of the gates, the winds proceed in the northwesterly direction. So he was at the east. He went north from the east, and he saw this place, and the wind is blowing from here northwesterly, right? Through 1 gate, they blow good things, but when they blow with force through the 2 other gates, they blow violence and sorrow. So through 1 gate is like that nice, cool summer breeze. And through the other 2 gates is like tornadoes and tsunamis and hurricanes. Any questions or comments on chapter 34? chapter 35. And from there, I went in the direction of the west to the extreme ends of the earth. And I saw there 3 gates. So he said 3 in the north, chapter 35 is 3 in the west. Three gates in the west. And from these gates, just like the one that I saw in the east in respect to the number of his exits. Okay. So I guess when he in chapter 33, I'm assuming in the gates of heaven were open. So I'm assuming that he's trying to say it was 3 gates here too. But I can't just say that because it doesn't give us an exact number here in 33. It doesn't give us an exact number, but I'm assuming it was probably 3 gates there as well. But in the west, we have 3 gates. And in the ones in the north came snow, wind, hail, frost, and all these things. And I feel like we probably be revisiting that. Chapter 36. Somebody want to read chapter 36 to the end?
I got it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. And from there, I went in the direction of the south to the extreme ends of the earth and saw 3 open gates of heaven from where the south wind, dew, rain, and wind come forth. From there, I went in the direction of the extreme ends of the heaven and saw there open gates of heaven with small gates above them in the direction of the east. Through one of these small gates, past the stars of heaven and travel westward on a path which is shown to them. And when I saw this, I blessed, and I shall always bless the Father of glory, to perform great and blessed miracles in order that he may manifest his great deeds to his angels, the winds, and to the people, so that they might praise the effect of all his creation, so that they might see the effect of his power and praise him in respect to the great work of his hands and bless him forever.
And that kind of speaks to the Psalm 19. How he said, in the firmament show of my handiwork, day by day, show of something, but then night by night, I don't remember exactly what it said. Day by day, it showed. Day by day, he uttereth his speech. And I'm sure that probably got something to do with the sun, the S-U-N, also the S-O-N. And night unto night, show of knowledge, he says, right? So as we are not going through this, and I see we do have 3 gates in the east as well. It said these 3 gates in the south. So basically the north and the south is kind of where what we get what it would call weather, because it doesn't detail in the gates of the east and the west that coming through. The one in the north said it had, out of the gate in the north, it said it was where it blows cold, hail, frost, snow, dew, and rain. And in this gate in the south, it blows the south wind, which is what we would know as a warm wind. Dew, rain, and wind come forth. Dew.
That makes sense because the north and the south are hot and cold fronts, so weather-wise.
True indeed. From there, he went in the direction of the extreme ends of the heaven, and he saw 3 gates of heaven open and the small gates above them. So in the direction of the east had 3 gates, but it also had 3 small gates above them, which the east is, like I said, speaking towards that ancient path, right? Or to a Hebrew looking to the east would, it would speak to the ancient path, the front of something, the beginning of something. Right? Because also the sun rises in the east. It begins the day, right? 3 gates in the east, Any questions or comments on this before we move on? 3 gates in the east and 3 small gates. Y'all got me over here taking notes. My bad, y'all over here writing down notes. I have to go back and look at some of this, man. 3 small gates, and then the 3 small gates pass the stars of the Shemaim. They travel westward on a path which is sown to them. So basically, they're obedient. Abba Yah told them that you all have to follow this path. And even the stars, like I say, it could be gas balls of fire and all of that, or it could possibly be Melachim. And they've been given orders. This is what you're supposed to do. And like I say, this is how I see Orion. He starts in the southeast in the winter season up north in Chicago here. And by the time, like if I see him and really he disappears before that, right before sunrise, but maybe around 3 in the morning, he'll be, if I'm sitting in front of my house, because the front of my house faces west, he'll be like, I'll see him on the horizon in like the northwest, which kind of resembles these stars and what he just said here about their path. And when I saw this, I blessed and I shall always bless the Father of the Master of Glory, who performed great and blessed miracles in order that he may manifest his great deeds to his angels, the winds, and to the people. So that goes to that Psalms 19, night by night, he showed knowledge. I think that's part why this knowledge was taken from us. You know, the heathen, they stole it as well, put with the captivity. But Abba Yah really took this knowledge from us because as our people fail, we weren't worthy to know these things, to be able to read the heavens and understand what he was saying directly to us. That's also why we say Torah Rabbah now to the awakening, because with understanding the Shabbat and all the laws and we the people and all of that, these are the type of things that he's given us back as well. Hallelujah. We just have to make some sense of them, which is, you know, it's going to take some studying, but you know, if we be worthy, he'll make it happen so that they might see the effect of his power and praise him in the respect to the great work of his hands and bless him that forever. So see, it's speaking about the Shemaim, these stars, these patterns, all of that is for us to learn something. Make sure I keep that in mind. Forth. That was an interesting read right there. So book 2, chapter 37. Somebody want to pick up chapter 37? So now first off, Enoch in this first vision he had, he went to possibly Sheol, talked to the fallen angels. They asked him to pray in detail what the fallen angels were teaching men on the earth, and they were killing the giant, or they were creating these giants. They asked Enoch to pray for them when Yah judged them and was locking them away. The ones who partake in this, we also came up with all angels didn't partake in the sleeping with the women, and the ones who partook in it were locked away. All fallen angels, I should say, didn't partake. Then Enoch goes on his travels. He starts in the west. He details the lake of fire, believably, Sheol, darkness, the place where souls rest. He travels east. We see what we believe could possibly be Jerusalem. These gardens, plural, as it says that he planted gardens in Eden, but then there was only one garden of Yah in the midst of Eden, he said, right? So we seen all this plush land, and then inside it was the Garden of Eden amongst these mountains, these streams, kind of like an oasis. And now he's shown them these gates of the earth, which do resemble the gates of the New Jerusalem with all of the names of the 12 tribes on them. Just like a quick recap of where we've been so far, chapters 1 through 36. So now as we start chapter 37, it's called the Book of the Similitudes. And it starts with the vision which Enoch saw the second time. So Enoch has not been translated. This is going to start his second vision. I don't think he's translated until, I don't know if it talks about him being translated in this first book of Enoch, but I know around like chapter 20, 22, 23, somewhere in there in the second book of Enoch, he speaks of the translation more directly. But anybody want to read chapter 37?
Sure, I can read.
Toda Aki. The floor is yours.
Okay, it reads, Book 2, the vision which Enoch saw the second time, the vision of wisdom which Enoch, son of Jared, son of Mahalalel, son of Canaan, son of Enosh, son of Seth, son of Adam, saw. This is the beginning of the words of wisdom, which I commend, or which I commenced to propound, saying to those who dwell in the earth, listen, you first ones, and look, you last ones, the words of the Holy One, which I teach before Yahuwah of Ruachot, or spirits. It is good to declare these words to those of former times, but one should not withhold the beginning of wisdom from those of latter days. Until now, such wisdom which I have received as I recited it in accordance with the will of Yahuwah of spirits, had not been bestowed upon me before the face of Yahuwah of spirits. From him, the lot of eternal life has been given to me. 3 wings were imparted to me, and I began to recount them to those who dwell upon the earth.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
Toda Rabbi Aki. So now he's saying this second vision, it sounds like it isn't going to be about the things that he's seeing as far as physical characteristics of the makeup of the earth. Now, as he said, this is about wisdom, which I teach before Yahuwah, master of spirits. It is good to declare these words to those of former times, but one should not withhold the beginning of wisdom from those of latter days, meaning I'm teaching this to y'all that's around me, but this is really going to matter to y'all in the end. So this explains the Jude when it says, this explains in the book of Jude, where it talks about, and Enoch also the 7th from Adam, and he just read back, he was the 7th, son of Jared, son of Mahalalel, Canaan. Who all did he say? Enosh and Seth. So he is the 7th. It said he prophesied of these, saying, behold, Yahuwah come up with 10,000 of his saints. So I'm assuming this is the beginning of possibly that prophecy that Jared was talking about then, right? It says, until now, such wisdom which I received as I recited it in accordance with the will of Yahuwah had not been bestowed upon me. So in this vision, he was taught something that he never knew, right? From him, the lot of eternal life has been given to me. Hallelujah. 3 things were imparted to me, and I began to recount them to those who dwell upon me. So Yah taught him something in this second vision. It's 3 things that stick out, and now this is what he's going to show us. Any questions or comments on chapter 37, the second vision? It is in Jasher Aki, true, and he was the king of the world. You know what? I don't know if it says it's in Jasher, but it does make sense that around that time when he starts to teach men about the ways of Yah, and men get themselves together. And it says in the life of Enoch, men on earth got themselves together, and when he died, the world began to get super wicked again. But hallelujah, Aki, I do believe that chapter 37 does kind of, well, I shouldn't say does, because we don't want to speak in absolutes, but could possibly coincide with that timing. And I think that's Jasher chapter 5, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll put that in my notes. This coincides with Jasher 5 in that time frame. Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I just wanted to say that that's funny because he said he preserved the wisdom for these times. And it's like that's what Yah had did by restoring us back to all the older past at the end. After our grandparents and went through the book, after everybody went through the book, like I've known so many people who studied Hebrew. That's from the older era. And so what I mean by now that they're 80. And they're like, well, we didn't get that far. And it's amazing almost. You'd be like, so y'all know, like, it came up before. It has came up a couple times and actually got squashed out in the United States. And I feel like that is always that it was for that special generation and the time of the Gentiles had to be fulfilled.
True.
And after that time period, then there's a time of understanding and restoration where the Father gives us everything back so we can uphold the knowledge. But without the Father waking us up or even making sure the ground can receive the seed, if so, or we're talking about planting, or really think of it in that type of way, we have to be really put through some things. And it's funny because now we've to the point with everything that goes on in America. I'm just saying this from a different point of view. Yeah, on my knees. When you see about 20 people getting shot and ain't nobody hanging for it. When I say on my knees, I've never been on the grips of losing myself. Like and it took that more so than anything to get a lot of people to be like, Father, I give up. I give up, man. There's too many people and they died. They don't even care. And I mean, that's what took a lot of people for them to come in, especially off the streets. Because it was more so like, okay, how else do you fight? Do you fight it with a gun? Or, I mean, the gun ain't gonna work all the time. All we're gonna do is get locked up. They're gonna have us as pets. So, at the end of the day, it's no point. It was nowhere to go but to the Father and say why. And that's when you see lamentation and all these other things come into play. So when I read the Book of Enoch, and he's teaching of wisdom, I thought about him having that wisdom stored up for the children from the beginning. So that really signifies when the Father said he declared the end and the beginning, because he was preparing for the children of Israel, the remnant within the Book of Enoch. And that's before Noah. Hallelujah.
True. And it's Jasher chapter 3. I'm sorry if anybody wants to read along this time when Enoch is teaching men all of this wisdom. That's detailed in Jasher chapter 3 when he teaches the known world what was going on. That's really great points, man. Both of y'all both of y'all making some really great points. This Enoch, boy. This is why you have to be rooted in scripture before you deal with a Book of Enoch, because by us having the understanding of the scriptures, it's even making this Enoch more understandable. And this is why it throws off so many, because it's a lot of people who, Enoch just has one of those catchy names, and a lot of people are just diving into Enoch. And as I believe we are noticing as we go on so far that it's better to have a handle on the scripture to make these things make more sense. Hallelujah. So in this first one, 6 verses, chapter 38. Anybody want to read it? The title of it is The Coming Judgment of the Wicked. So this is one of the first things that he said he was imparted to him, 3 things, and I began to recount them to those who dwell upon the earth. So possibly Jasher chapter 3, when Enoch is speaking to the world and he's teaching the things of Yah, these are the things that he was teaching. In the first one, chapter 38, is the coming judgment of the wicked. Amir, you want to read this, since you always speaking to the judgment of things, man? And you big on the judgment of the earth. Would you like to read chapter 38 if you're free?
Yeah, I got it.
Hallelujah.
Chapter 38. The first thing, when the congregation of the righteous shall appear, sinners shall be judged for their sins. They shall be driven from the face of the earth. And when the righteous one shall appear before the face of the righteous, those elect ones, their deeds are hung upon the lords of the spirits. And he shall reveal light to the righteous and the elect who dwell upon the earth. Where will the dwelling of the sinners be? And where the resting place of those who deny the name of the Lord of the spirits? It would have been better for them not to have been born when the secrets of the righteous one are revealed. He shall judge the sinners, and the wicked ones will be driven from the presence of the righteous and the elect. And from that time, those who possess the earth will neither be rulers nor princes. They shall not be able to behold the face of the holy ones, for the light of the Lord of the spirits have shined upon the face of the holy, the righteous, and the elect. At that moment, kings and rulers shall perish. They shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous and holy ones. And from thenceforth, no one shall be able to induce the Lord of the spirits to show them mercy, for their life is annihilated.
Hallelujah. That started off with a bang. So,
Mhm.
it's interesting that the first thing that Enoch starts to teach them is about judgment. And I know, Mira, I played with you as far as putting you on blast, but you were right. When we first started this, you spoke to how this book speaks about judgment, and that leads to the truth of it, because under Christianity, for this sake, the doctrines of it all, it doesn't speak to judgment. Everything's really just happy sappy. So for Enoch, the first thing to speak is about judgment. Get yourself right, or you're gonna be judged. A, that follows the tone of the scripture, and B, that goes against modern religion and what it teaches. With that being said, we know we're at a time where I don't know if it's giants on the earth yet. Maybe, because they did ask Enoch to pray for them, right? So all of that may have already had started. And Enoch is letting the world know, like, nah, that ain't how this gonna rock. We also know that it's a duality here. Like he said, this should be of those for former times, but also for those in latter times, because the end is going to be like the days of Noah. So he's prophesying as well. And we know he's not talking about when Yahushua was here in the flesh, because Yahushua said, I wasn't here to judge at that time. I'm here to teach, gather the lost sheep of Israel, Yasharal, and to show them all things, right? He's literally talking about the latter days for real, possibly the time we're in now. And I ain't gonna lie, if this world was to go another 100 years, I'd be shocked. But, we may be 150 years out still. I don't know. But we close, though. We close. Any questions or comments on this chapter 38? This was just an interesting read. Toda Kote.
I have a question. Now, as I'm reading it, it's talking about the righteous one and the Lord of the spirits. Is that one and the same? Is that talking about Yah, or it sound like two different entities?
The righteous one, I would guess to be Yahushua. And as we go forward, matter of fact, we close. We in chapter 38, and I think it's chapter 43 or 46, where he says he has a vision in heaven, and he sees the Son of Man next to the throne, and he's an actual man. And he's gonna ask, like, who's this flesh and blood up here? And he's gonna tell him, this is the one who's gonna come free you all. That's what the angel's gonna tell him that's with him, which who knows which one it is, because Enoch done been with them all at this point. The righteous one.
Okay, so in verse 1 of chapter 38, it says the congregation of my book has add one to it, says the righteous one, but on your screen it says the righteous, same thing. So it's saying, when the congregation of the righteous shall appear, sinners shall be judged. So it's sounding like a courtroom, like that's the visual I'm getting. So it's not just one person. The judgment isn't, you're not just standing before the judge. It's saying there's an actual congregation of righteous that are judging the wicked. Is that also what you're saying?
Yes, and that's what we are really doing today. As we pick up the ways of Yah, as we teach our families, or try to, and more than just speaking, as we align our lives with the characteristics to be in the correct function of Yah, we, even without opening our mouths, we are already bearing witness on this world. If that make any sense to did that make any sense to anybody? Did I say that right? The way we live, bearing witness already. So I see that as the latter days as he speaks now. And I agree with you, Sam. In 100 years, man, listen, the way this world is, man, and he say he won't let them destroy it. They'd destroy this world if it go another 100 years. It feel like we on the cusp of that now. So I definitely agree with the New Jerusalem. Hallelujah. I pray that we all worthy. But to your point, Mir, this awakening is already bearing witness, because you have a remnant that's getting his life together in the midst of this madness all over the world. And the light is shining, and let me let me tell you all something to make a note of. No matter what you say to nobody about this truth, who hears, who don't, always remember this. As you grow closer with Yah and you continue to walk in accordance with Yah and you continue to speak in accordance with Yah, as I read with my family recently, John chapter 3, it says the one that comes from Elohim speaks the words of Elohim. As you grow in that function and continue to do that, remember, even the people who claim they aren't, everybody is watching you. They're watching to see if you fall so that they can call you a hypocrite or whatever the case may be. Remember the story when Yahushua was on the water with them in the boat. It said that there were other boats on the water with them too when the storm came. And all the boats was looking at that boat for direction to see what they were going to do. And Yahushua calmed the storm. And whenever I read that story, it makes me think of, as we're all on this water of tribulation and the world can't find shalom, as we stay in function with Yah and he gives us shalom, everybody's watching. So that's why it's important that we stay on point and try our best to be that example. It's on you, Lauren.
Oh, well, I definitely agree with Shireen. Definitely with the judgment. I love that. That's why I do gravitate to the Book of Enoch, because there's no way out of it. There's no way for it to be a cloak for your sin after you come out of this book, because you should know if you're going to make it or not. It's real plain to see who's not going to make it and who is going to make it, because it tells you the lines where it is drawn of good and evil, and to say, well, if you're over here, that means you're hot, neither cold, and for that he'll spit you out. And when I thought about what he's saying there, when the congregation of the righteous shall appear, I always thought about when they spoke of David, like when he comes through the crowds, because Dawid is spoken of to come through the crowds at the end of the days with the army. And I think about them being in white linen upstairs, and then we're getting clothed in white linen, and the Father changing our appearance. And also when it says that, let's see here, in verse 3, when the secrets of the righteous one are revealed. See, we hear that again. That's in another one of the other books. I'm gonna be real brief though. It's in the book of Baruch. And he talks about when the Messiah is finally revealed, how everybody will be so shocked. The righteous one are revealed. When the secrets of the righteous one are revealed, he shall judge the sinners. And I thought about, I gotta find that verse, but they speak about it in Baruch when it speaks about right after the trees. I think it's like 3 chapters over. I think it's in like 38. But he speaks about Hamashiach. He speaks about the revealing of him, the revealing of good and evil in a way, because as people gravitate to Jesus, they're gravitating to none of the laws. So when we gravitate to Yahushua, because his name is true, everything about him is true, and we're trying to worship the Father in spirit and truth. And that's what he asks us to do. By worshiping him in spirit and truth, we are sealing, we're putting the seal upon us. We're holding up the standard. The people who will be not of the standard, or the people who are not of the standard, they will be crossed out and gone. They are what the what the father said, that is thrown into the fire, which is the wood that is dried up, used for nothing, or the vessels that cannot be filled with anything. They are really good for nothing because they're dirty on the inside, but they're beautiful on the outside. So when it speaks about the righteous and the wicked, it definitely signifies that it is going to be a huge battle at the end. And I think about that when I read this particular chapter. I think about Jeremiah 51. I think about when the Father says, and I do believe it's Joel. And Joel, when he's speaking that, we will be doing things that's not normal. When he talks about climbing on top of houses, when he talks about people attacking them and they will not fall. He talks about them going through the people and, really sad to say, acting as you are the Father's army. And that's what he says in Jeremiah 51. He said, you are my battle axe and my weapons of war. With you, I'm going to break in pieces the nations. So when he said the light is shining off of them, We are looking like the Father. He is shined upon us. I think about the way Moshe came down the mountain and everybody looked at him. It'll be the same for us, but it'll be a different type of raiment because you're completely changed. You're completely translated. And at the end, during that time, I do believe when we are with the Father and we are inside the gate, we will be translated during that time. And this right here, I'm just saying to me, speak about the translation, the separation between good and evil, and how the Father will deal with the wicked, completely annihilating it from the face of the earth. But during that time, we will be working with him.
We working with him right now, Coty. Hallelujah. This was just a powerful read, this chapter here. I'm about to go back and reread this.
So can I ask a question to Lauren? So are you saying that the righteous ones are the people who will make up the congregation of the righteous that's mentioned in verse 1? Because it seemed like I mentioned, like, and you helped to make it clearer. So I'm seeing like a courtroom setting where you have Yahuwah, which is who I'm guessing the Lord of the Spirits is, because it talks about the righteous one, the righteous, the wicked, and the Lord of the Spirits, right? So I'm seeing like Yah is the judge, the Hoshua would be like the attorney. Then you have the jury, which would be the righteous ones, and then you're judging the wicked. And then in verse 5, it talks about the kings being given over into the hands of the righteous ones. So it's like the verdict is cast, you're going to the lake of fire, and then they're turned over to the congregation of the righteous to get rid of them. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a movie scene in my head. And so like Lauren said, we're playing a part in their judgment. Is that what you're saying, or no?
Hallelujah. I agree. Well, what you saying, I agree. And I feel like what it's saying, when the congregation, and I think your translation was better, when the congregations of the righteous one, remember, Enoch is having this, and he's speaking this at a time before the flood. The congregation of the righteous one is those who believe in Yahushua HaMashiach. And I say that it seems so, maybe cliche ain't the right word, but it just seems so simple. But when you think about it though, nobody in the world believes in Yahushua HaMashiach. The world believes in Mohammed and Jesus Christ. The righteous one is Yahushua HaMashiach, right? So I do agree. It is like a court scene. I believe this righteous one is Yahushua, and then the master of spirits is Yahuwah. The master of spirits is Yahuwah, and it's talking about the end. He's talking about the end times. At that moment, the kings and the rulers shall perish. They shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous and holy ones, right? Because we are the witness now. The 24 elders that was put in the thing as well are the righteous who've passed away that will be with Yahushua at this judgment. They'll be part of the judgment in a way, right? And they shall be delivered into the hands of the righteous and holy ones. And from thenceforth, no one shall be able to induce the master of spirits, meaning Yahuwah, to show them mercy. So I also see right here this is why we can't wait till tomorrow to correct ourselves. We have to really be trying every day to get better and better, because that line is saying that there's going to come a time where there will be no more forgiveness of sin. We have to get this right. Oxam, would you like to read and allude to that you put in the text?
Sure thing. I'll read that scripture that I put in there. I put in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, and it says, in the sight of Elohim, or Elohim, and the Master Yahushua Mashiach, who shall judge the living and the dead at his appearing and his reign, I earnestly charge you. So just wanted to throw that out there. I don't really have much to say other than I agree with you that the righteous one is indeed Yahushua. And in Hebrew, the Lord of Spirits, I assume, would sound like Yahuwah Ruachoth, just like Yahuwah Sabaoth is master of armies, And so I just wanted to put that scripture in there.
What scripture was it? It's not coming up for me. 2 Timothy?
Second Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. It's kind of like a prophecy yet to be fulfilled type of thing.
Well, I'm reading different.
I have the TS 2009 version.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was tweaking. Okay. Hallelujah.
No, you're good. And actually, that version can you can get that one on eSword. I use that one too.
No, true. I have it on here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
In the sight of Elohim and the Master, Yahushua, Hamashiach, who shall judge the living and the dead at his appearing and his reign, I earnestly charge you. And that, I do believe that what Enoch is speaking there is speaking to that. And, this answers a few questions too. Like, for example, all of the patriarchs knew that there was a Messiah coming, or Yahuwah would reveal himself in the flesh one day. It's things like this prophecy from Enoch that would have gave them that belief, which leads to that it had, in some form. I don't know if it was paper. It could have been as what they call it, cuneiform or whatever, where it's on rock. But this story, these visions, these stories from Enoch were known amongst Noah, Shem, Abraham, down to Jacob and Moshe, because they were all speaking of one day when you come. They knew that a Hamashiach would come, and they all spoke to judgment in this same manner. So this also kind of speaks to that as well. But Todah for that scripture. You gotta let me know when you use the TS 2009, man. You had me throw it off. I thought I was messing up.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. It's on you, Lauren.
No, that was a good script, Sam. I don't think people gonna have time. I think it's really gonna be that instant judgment. And the reason why I said that, because I think about what that verse he just pulled out was fire, Sam. I just want to say that again, Todah. But Isaiah 6, man, because it's straight to the point. Is upon his appearing. Upon his appearing is something really deep to think about. It really is. Books are closed. There is no going back. In Isaiah 66, verse 15, it says, "For behold, Yahuwah will come with fire and with chariots like whirlwind." But no, let me back up to 14. I apologize because I'm on the wrong verse. I want to read 14, 15, and 16 because it all goes together. Isaiah 16, verse 14. Isaiah 66, verse 14. "And when ye see this, your heart shall rejoice, and your bones shall flourish like an herb. And the hand of Yahuwah shall be known towards his servants, and his indignation toward his enemies. For behold, Yahuwah will come with fire, with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will Yahuwah plead with all flesh. And the slain of Yahuwah shall be many." So when we see all this stuff going on right now, and they like, man, people dying left and right. I don't know if people just saw the news, but every Black neighborhood, they just basically put them on a chart and said, no, we've never seen charts like this ever in our life. Every city is reaching charts. When you see the slain of being so many, it's like almost the Father pleading with us to please stop sinning. Please stop sinning. And we will keep going on, of course. But in verse 16, it says, "For by fire and by his sword will Yahuwah plead with all flesh, and slain of Yahuwah shall be many." Verse 17, "They that sanctify themselves, purify themselves in the gardens, behind one tree, in the midst, eating swine flesh, and the abomination, and the mouse, they should be consumed together, says Yah. For I know their works, their thoughts, it shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory." That's a scary thing to me. That's always been a scary verse because I've always thought about the preachers, all the people saying, man, how holy they are. And they eat that swine. But I've always thought this, and I thought about, do they even go to the judgment? Do they be just picked up and thrown into the fire? And I've really thought about that a long time as far as the judgment. Who makes it to the judgment? Do everyone make it to the judgment? Or are you automatically judged? And what he just pulled out with that verse, it really, the way that verse set with me was, no, you don't have time. You will be judged as soon as he appears. Judgment will begin.
Hallelujah. Yeah, that is an interesting verse. I used that verse one day to show somebody we weren't supposed to eat pork. sadly, they was a Christian. They told me, "Oh, that's the Old Testament. That's done away." I'm like, all right, man. But yeah, it do make you wonder. And when you think of that, they sanctify themselves and purify themselves, and then they had these Christmas reunions, and they in there eating pork and shrimp, and it just shows you the ignorance that's in this world. And that's why we pray for Yasharal, man. Everybody ain't wicked. Everybody ain't being defiant and eating this swine flesh. Some people really just ignorant and don't know. And I guess that's who we really praying for, because the people who know better and doing it, there really is no prayer that you can say for them. They've already made a choice. That chapter 38 was just a really good read. 39 looks like a really long read. Where we at? I don't know. Should we stop right here? We'd have made some ground. I mean, we can read it. I don't know. If one of you want to read it, we could read 39 and then maybe pick it back up next time. This was a good conversation. I got some good notes, man. I got to go back and do some reading. Y'all got me on my toes in here. I need that.
I got it.
Go ahead.
Let's see. I gotta blow it up. All right, there we go. And it shall come to pass in those days that the children of the elect and the holy ones will descend from the high heaven, and their seed will become one with the children of the people.
So stop.
And
Before you even go, stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Children of the elect and the holy ones will descend. Remember, he's talking about the end again. Yahushua has gotten the victory. We aren't waiting in that place with the light in Abraham's bosom no more. The righteous wait in paradise now, which is the third level of heaven. Which is, oh my goodness. Real quick, 2 Corinthians 12. Paul had a vision. It is not expedient for me, doubtless to glory. I will come to visions and revelations of Yah. I knew a man in Mashiach above 14 years ago. He was talking about himself, Shaul. Whether in the body, I cannot tell, or whether out the body. He didn't know if it was a vision or he was literally there. That's how real, when you wake up and you're like, man, that dream felt real, right? He don't know which one. He cannot tell. Elohim knoweth. Such an one caught up to the third heaven, right? How that it was caught up into paradise and heard unspeakable words, right? And I've always read this. I don't know if you may have did this too, Sam. I remember you did the reading of the Apocalypse of Paul, where he details going up to this third heaven. But I've always confirmed that book with this chapter, 2 Corinthians 12, if you've never read it. But after Yahushua, the righteous go to wait in the third level of heaven in paradise. So when it's talking here, the children of the elect and the holy ones will descend, is talking about those humans who are waiting in the third level of heaven in paradise. They will come and their seed, and they will become one with the children of the people, the righteous one, right? Because we'll be changed by that time. The people will be changed into a heavenly being, body, garment, robe, right? And we're going to link all back up. And this is why I tell people, you have some ignorant people, and Yah says, I'm a judge how I'm judged. Your ways ain't my ways. So we don't know exactly how he's going to judge. And this is why there's always hope for loved ones who, not the wicked, the murderers, but, some people who were good people and maybe did some of the things of the scripture, but their doctrine was off. This is why there's hope that you may see somebody again. And that's why as the living, we have to strive even harder to be right with Yah, to ensure that if that person maybe had a favorable judgment based off the way they lived their life instead of the letter of the doctrine that they did know, because we know we'll be judged off what we know. Yah isn't going to judge anybody off what they don't know. You're going to be judged off what you did know. And that's why I hope that we may see our people again. But I just wanted to stress, because that almost came off like the angels is going to come link up with the people, and that, no. It's talking about the people that were people who are waiting in paradise to come back and see their lineage or whoever else makes it, right? So go ahead. It's on you, Mira, before we go.
So I'm assuming that's where, not that most Christians read extra books or anything, but maybe that's where they're getting this whole heaven thing, because they make it sound like the prerequisite to heaven is death. So it doesn't matter how you live. The minute someone dies, they're like, oh, grandma so-and-so's in heaven and Uncle Sally is in, you know what I'm saying? Like the minute you're dead, you're in heaven. We know that's not true.
True.
But it's sounding like that could be where that idea is coming from, because the righteous ones that are in Abram's bosom, they're going to be coming down from the heavens, but not everyone on earth who died is going to heaven like they teach us in church.
Exactly.
So you're going to go somewhere. You're either going to go up or down when we die,
But it's
either to Abram's bosom or to Sheol for the wicked.
True. And that's just one of those things. It's part truth. Yes, the righteous go to heaven, but the difference with the church and what we saying is everybody ain't righteous. We have to be walking this thing out with y'all. Now, once again, y'all judge how he judge, and he'll judge everybody according to what they know. There won't be any ignorant judgments, right? So that's why we can't call how some people be. But like we spoke about the pork, you have some people who know in the Bible it say don't eat pork and still will tell you, I don't care, I'm gonna eat pork. I don't know about his judgment, because that's acknowledging that you know and you didn't care. Now, there are some people who, like, take the descendants of the slave, the 1700s, our people in slavery who couldn't read and write. They may not have knew the name and all that correctly, but they still knew not to be stealing and killing each other. They wasn't backbiting and gossiping on their brother. You know, they were locked in as a family, trying to do right by each other. You know, that judgment to be different. So yeah, it's truth to that. You go to heaven if you live righteous, but what the church says is everybody in the church who died, that's a lie. Nah, it's going to be based off of how close you came to getting.
But then that now brings up another question, because I used to think, or my understanding is that Sheol is the holding place of the dead, regardless of whether you're righteous or not, right? And I could be wrong.
It was.
But my understanding was that Sheol is under the earth, because when we look at, let's say, Jacob, when he's like, you're going to bring my head down to Sheol, or David would always say, you're bringing me down to Sheol, not up. They would always refer to Sheol and down. Mm-hmm. So I thought Sheol was under the earth. You're right. And in Sheol, there are different levels, right? So there's Abram's bosom, which is there. But this is making it sound like in the heavens, which is above us, is where these righteous ones are going to be coming in. True. So now that makes me think, is there like a special place for set apart righteous ones? For example, Enoch or Elijah or Abraham, you know what I'm saying? Like certain ones that they might be above us. And then Sheol is where the regular righteous ones are waiting. So, because now I'm just like, okay, now I'm confused. If that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
You are right. You are right. Abraham's bosom, what Enoch detailed earlier, he was in the mountain and there was 4 places in Sheol, 3 places of darkness, 1 of light. He said the righteous waited in the place of light. And what we would see is Abraham's bosom. That was before Yahushua came and got the victory, though. Once he came and got the victory over death, he descended down there, cracked Satan on his head, and he pulled, and it said that the graves were opened up and many of the dead walked the streets, because he pulled them back out. They walked the streets for a time, and then he took them to paradise. Remember the thief that was with him, he said, you'll rest in paradise with me this day, right? The thief that was on the tree with him. So you were right. There was a time when we waited there. But after Yahushua that was part of the victory over death. The righteous now wait in paradise. That's my belief, you know, and there are scriptures to back it up, but we aren't in here to be trying to back up points. That's the belief, though. So you are right, though. There was a day that was Adam was the first man the scripture says died. So Adam was in that place of light from creation until Yahushua got here, which based off the timeline, if correctly, Adam was there for 4,000 years. But then Yahushua took him to paradise to wait these last 2,000. If these timelines are right, that's where we are. Oxam, I believe you wanted to fill in to that point as well. But you were right, Mira. You aren't wrong.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to back up what you were saying. You pretty much said everything that was on my mind in regards to Akot Mira's question. because the first thing I thought about was the New Testament Apocrypha book, and it's called Christ's Descent into Hell or Sheol. And it's very short, but in it, it details the conversations that occurred between, Adam and David and Elijah and the prophets and the patriarchs and men of old in that domain or realm in Abraham's bosom. And the conversation was between them and Yahusha when he actually came down there. And you can see the discourse between the I don't want to say a being, but the book writes as if Hades or Sheol itself is a being that can speak. And between Satan and the demons, they couldn't withstand the light of Yahusha. And it's also in the Gospel of Bartholomew. And I just like how there's different witnesses that confirm these things. But like what you were saying, Dre, I'm just pretty much repeating what you were saying. But after Yahusha is when he took them up to paradise, after his blood was shed and the veil was torn, they then had access to enter into that heavenly realm and be with Yahuwah, because before Yahusha, there was no blood sacrifice for them to be counted righteous to even be in the midst of Yahuwah and his presence, which is why Yahusha had to come and get them out of that place, which is Abraham's bosom.
True. And you're right, there are multiple witnesses. The super gospel says it. The gospel of Nicodemus has that story. It's different scriptures, and we don't have time. We're going to try to get to 39 out of here, but it's different scriptures in the right in the 66 that talks about him going and prophesying to those in darkness and pulling the prisoners out. And it's also scriptures in the 66 to speak of it. I know some are in Psalms. I think it's Psalm 68. But Mira, you're right. The wicked, they still go wait in darkness and Sheol, but the ones who Yahuwah says is righteous, and that's the difference with the church, because the church says everybody who been coming to church and paying tithe is righteous, and we know that not to be true. It's the ones who Yahuwah sees as righteous is the ones, and you are right. That's the video we did with the family they're talking about is the one when I kept telling them, man, everybody down there was like, yo, there go Adam. That's one of the accounts of that story that Oxam is saying, but there are multiple accounts accredited to people in the Bible too, not just random readings by some Greek philosopher like Bartholomew was one of the disciples, I believe, or he was around them. We know Nicodemus was the one who came to talk to him, who in the end had switched his tone and believed in him. It's other accounts that they accredit to like Kepha and Yahachanan. So, it's one of those things. But like I say, we're not here to prove right and wrong. That's just a thought. Lauren, let's finish this chapter out. Hallelujah. But you are right, Mira. There, you weren't wrong. It's just Yahushua. That's part of the victory over death, is that you don't get to reign over the wicked as they rest anymore. And in those okay.
I'm ready. In those days, Enoch received the books of zeal and wrath, as well as the books of haste and whirlwind. Yahuwah of the Spirit says that mercy shall not be upon them. In those days, I'm sorry, go ahead. So there my eyes saw their dwelling places with the holy angels, and their resting places with the holy ones. And they interceded and petitioned and prayed on behalf of the children of the people, and righteousness flowed before them like water, and mercy like dew upon the earth. And thus it is in their midst forever and ever. And in those days my eyes saw the elect one of righteousness and of faith, and righteousness shall prevail in his days. And the righteous and elect ones shall be without number before him forever and ever. And I saw a dwelling place underneath the wings of Yahuwah of the spirits.
So hold on, stop right there. And just to show how we bounce things back, remember in Psalms 91, he says the protection is under the dwelling of your wings, right? That's where we want to be. Basically, is what Psalms 91 is saying, is the only place you're going to be secure is under the dwellings of his wings. But go ahead.
me see. And all the righteous and the elect before him shall be as intense as the light of fire. Their mouths shall be full of blessings, and their lips will praise the name of Yahuwah of the spirits, and righteousness before him will have no end, and uprightness before him will not cease. There underneath his wings I wanted to dwell, and my soul desired that dwelling place. Already my portion is there. Hallelujah. For thus has it been reserved for me before Yahuwah of the spirits. And in those days I praised and prayed to the name of Yahuwah of spirits with blessing and praises. For he has strengthened me by blessings and praises in accordance with the will of Yahuwah of the spirits. And I gazed at that place under his wings, and I blessed and praised, saying, Blessed is he, that may he be blessed, and from the beginning and forevermore. There is no such thing as non-existence before him, even before the world was created. He knows what is forever and what will be from generation to generation. Those who do not slumber, but stand before, your glory did bless you. They shall, they shall bless, praise, and extol you, saying, Holy, 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 Yahuwah of the spirits. The spirits fill the earth. And at that place, under his wings, my eyes saw others who stood before him sleepless, and blessed him, saying, Blessed are you, and blessed is the name of Yahuwah of the spirits forever and ever. And my face was changed on account of the fact that I could not withstand the sight.
Sound just like Moshe on Mount Sinai when he was in front of Yah. His face was changed, and that's part of the translation he's going to go through in the second one. And that shows you the power of the glory of Yah, because he started this by saying that he only saw a vision, but even in his vision, Yah's glory is so powerful, it changed his face. I'm not going to open up the questions and comments on that. Y'all can dwell on the Enoch chapter 39 the next week, because it was just a lot there. And we're going to pick it up right there with questions and comments on this chapter. But that was if anybody got something short they want to add, they can add, but it is getting kind of late, and this was just really deep. I kind of regretted I even started once we got through it, because it was just a lot of meat right here. But we're going to pick this up right here. The place of the righteous, right? The home of the righteous. This was an interesting read, man. This is really starting out to be something. And hallelujah, a Koti mirror that, Abiyah's opening you up to this, and you seeing that, this ain't like the Ellen G. White books where they just talking about anything. Like Enoch is actually right in line with Torah. Hallelujah. If there's anybody got something short they want to add before we go, but this is turning into being something. And just at that end, Moshe was literally on the mountain, his face was changed, but the power of Yah is so powerful. Enoch said, and my face was changed on account of the fact I could not withstand the sight, and he's only having a vision, and he couldn't stand in front of Yah. So it shows that while we have to continue to do what we got to do every day, man, to be found worthy, to have our garments changed, because if Yahushua doesn't find us worthy to change our garments, we can never stand in front of Yah, which is the end goal. Hallelujah. Everybody good before we go? Hallelujah. Toda Aksam for to you and Lauren, Mir, everybody who done added something to the conversation. It all furthered the conversation. And this was a really good read today. I hated that Akifa missed it, man. I know he would have had a lot to add to this as well. Hallelujah. Everybody good? Everybody good? If everybody good, I'm going to pray us out. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay. Yeah. True, Sam. It's a magnifying glass to the book to judge ourselves. True indeed. Abiyah's worthy, man. Abiyah's worthy. As I pray us out, everybody prepare their mind and, focus on the throne room of Yah. Focus on that place of the righteous that Enoch is talking about, that As we pray out, we just say, Abiyah, we say thank you, Todah Rabbah, for giving us the understanding and the wherewithal to dig deeper into your scriptures and to, we thank you for your Ruach coming up on our conversation and helping us to tie as much of this back to what we know and believe to be true, to get the understanding. Todah Rabbah for everybody on the call with questions and comments that have helped further this conversation, Abiyah. We ask that you continue to lift, I ask that you continue to lift everybody up on this call, Abiyah, and to guide them. Let Yahushua continue to be their lamp, to lead them on righteously in the way, on your path, Father Yah, so that we can all continue to get better in your ways and in your sight. Hallelujah, Abiyah. I ask that you forgive us all of our sins and our shortcomings, Father, for we are an unclean people, but you are merciful and patient. And we know that you didn't bring us this far to kill us or to see us stumble. And we just thank you, Father Yah. We ask you to continue to reveal yourself, continue to fulfill your will and your word in our lives, Abiyah, and help us to understand where we go wrong so that we can properly repent and get back on the path and pick the plow back up, Abiyah, and stay focused and locked in with you. I pray for anybody tonight who may be on the call or listen to this later with the sicknesses and the plagues that you have allowed to be up on the planet, as you are reorganizing population in the manner that you do. We just ask that you protect us, Father Yah. If any of us are ill or we know anybody that's ill, Father Yah, we just ask that your healing be upon us, upon our households, Abiyah, that you strengthen us, you strengthen our minds in this hour, you strengthen our bodies, you help us to focus, Father Yah, and you give us what we need to endure to the end. Here in captivity, in this American Babylonian captivity where we have been under the shadow of the heathen for 400 plus years now. We know that we are in that time, Father Yah. We just ask that you continue to guide us and you help us. You help our families if it be your will. And if we be found worthy enough to ask, Father, we humbly come before your throne and we bow the knee. We say, Todah Rabbah for Yahushua HaMashiach, the righteous one, the righteous judge. As it says in Deuteronomy, you said that you'll send your servant before us and that we should do right or he will not forgive us. So we know that you've given him that power. And we thank you for opening up your word and allowing us to see Yahushua HaMashiach, your real Messiah, your real son, and the truth about his life and what he had come into this world to show him so that we could correct ourselves, Abiyah. And there is no greater thanks. The greatest thanks that we can give you is about listening and picking up your ways and being not only speakers of the word, but doers of the word and adding all of that to our lives, Father Yah, moving forward correctly, moving forward in the righteous way. We ask that you humble all our spirits, Abiyah, and you just show us to be better sisters and brothers, better mothers and fathers, better sons and daughters, to further get away from the world, the ways of our old lives, Abiyah. For I believe most of us have lived at so many years not in the truth that we are all every day trying to shed more and more of the flesh, more and more of the worldly ways that we picked up and were taught as tradition every day. We don't judge anybody, Abiyah, because as you told us, remember that you were all just strangers and sojourners in the land that it wasn't yours. And we were just like those who we come to try to speak to, Father Yah. So we just ask that you forgive us and continue to show us and allow your light to shine through us and allow your light to be upon whoever we are around. Put the words in our mouth as we speak your words, Abiyah. Don't let us speak from our own hearts. Let us decrease as you increase. And let your Ruach fulfill us, Father Yah, as we do your work and become functioning vessels in your tabernacle, with the hopes of doing something acceptable before you, Abiyah, if it be your holy will. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in the Shemayim. Todah Rabbah for our forefather, the patriarch Enoch, whose name means dedication, is the root word of dedication. And we understand now that the dedication, as we read this book, as the Oxam said earlier, you are showing us that it's going to take a certain level of dedication to get to this glory. But you are also letting us know that from the beginning, you've chosen us and you've put something in us that we didn't even know we had. And that's how we know that we can get it done. In Yahushua HaMashiach's name we pray. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
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 Everybody have a good night. It's good
You
seeing
too.
everybody, man. It's gonna heat
Shalom.
up. Like I say, I've read the Book of Enoch. I don't know it verbatim, but I do know that when we get into these 40s, I think that's why I wanted to read chapter 39, although we got to go back. But I do remember the chapters in the 40s, and this is about to heat up.
Mm-hmm.
This is about to heat up. He's about to see Yahushua in the flesh. He's about to do more in the heavens. This is about to heat up. So hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Layla Tov, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too. Layla Tov.
Hallelujah.
Layla Tov.